Madison, J.P. Madison.
Let us pray. We pray tonight for guidance for this body as we seek to do what is best for all the residents of Washington County. We also pray that you will guide all the voters in this country as the elections approach, that we do what is best for our country, our state, and our county. We pray in the name of all that is holy. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, J.P. Madison. Next, we have a roll call.
Daniel Balls.
Here.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Here.
Robert Dennis.
Present.
Lisa Ecke.
Here.
Ann Harbison. Ann Harbison.
Here.
Sharon Lloyd.
Here.
Tom Lundstrom.
Here.
Eva Madison.
Here.
Sue Madison.
Here.
Joel Maxwell.
Here.
Gary McHenry.
Here.
Joe Patterson.
Here.
Butch Pond.
Here.
Bill Ussery.
Here.
Quorum present. Next thing you have is adoption of the agenda. I'd like to recognize J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Members, regarding item 20.1, I want to thank the co-sponsors that joined me on that resolution. But with great joy, I would move that we adopt the agenda with that item deleted, since that is no longer necessary. Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, the agenda is adopted with the one change. Next.
No, there needs to be another change.
I'm sorry.
You got 11.1.
I think there was one ordinance that needed to be added to appropriate for money for environmental affairs grant fund.
Number 21.
21.1.
Do we have a motion to add this ordinance?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This is it's adopted with 20.1 added to. I'm not hearing much of it. Next thing we have is the citizens' comments. Do I have anyone that'd like to make a comment tonight in citizens' comments? You're recognized. Give us your name. You got 3 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Judge. My name is Josh Bergstrom, and as many of you know, I work at the Extension Service. I think I've met all of you by now. But tonight, I want to make this clear. I came as a taxpayer of Washington County. My opinions and what I state here are my viewpoints and not those of the Extension Service. When I joined the Army in 1996, one of my commanders would absolutely tear your head off if you came into him with a problem and no solution. And listening to what we've been working through as far as the Extension Service, I've kind of figured there's basically 2 solutions to the problem as far as financing it to the level it needs to be financed. One is either at the county and the other is at the state. So I went to the public records to kind of determine where I fell and what I thought of on this. Either way, tax dollars are going to end up being paid for it. So that's really what I'm here about, is my tax dollars and the tax dollars of those in Washington County. In the fiscal year 2016, 75 counties contributed $3.8 million to the Extension Service. With the solution of giving the extension responsibility back to the state and using the U.S. Census Bureau's estimated population of just under 3 million in Arkansas, that cost per person would be $1.27. Now, when we look at the 2017 proposed budget for the Washington County Extension Service of the $222,000, when we look at the Census Bureau population estimates of 255,477 living in Washington County, for the exact same service, we're looking at 87 cents per person. So that means by giving it back to the state and making them control it, it is costing the taxpayers an extra 41 cents for each taxpayer or per person. That's not really everybody doesn't pay the taxes, the populations for children and everything, but if every single person paid, it would be 41 cents more to do it at the state level. For me, as a taxpayer and a resident of Washington County, I think we need to keep it local. I think we need to keep that responsibility here and not take on the burden of paying for 74 other counties' extension services. I'd just like to encourage the court that we do take ownership of that here in the county, that we keep the tax burden less. It's a local program. We meet with local people, local producers, the people we affect are the ones who direct what we do here in the county as far as extension goes. By giving it back to the state, then you're looking at, they get to dictate and determine out of Little Rock what we do.
Your time is up.
All right. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
I
Court.
appreciate your time tonight. Anyone else got a citizen's comment? Thank you all for coming. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, come forward and identify yourself.
I'm slow.
That's all right.
My name's Louise Powers. I am a resident of South Washington County, and I just want to be here to offer my support in additional funding for the Extension Office. I think it's a good program, and I hope that you all will see that it is too. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Next thing you have before you is approval of the minutes.
Madam Judge,
Yes, you're recognized.
I have read the minutes this time and found two totally non-consequential errors that Carly's corrected, and I'd move approval of all three sets of the minutes.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you, J.P. Madison. Next thing we have is our treasurer's report. Mr. Hale, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Judge. Good evening, everybody. All right, 7.1. Notice that general started with 11.8 million, but ended at 9.7. 3.2 million in expenditures, but 820,000 of that was the general infusion into the insurance fund. But still, anytime it gets, that's the psychological barrier for me, is the $10 million mark in general, and I hate to see it under that, but we're still under that today. So jail and road, they pretty much spent about what they brought in, so they stayed about the same through September. If you look on the next page, the beginning balance, ending balance is almost identical. Had 31.7 million left in the bank at the end of September. 7.2, 1 cent sales tax. Had our best showing since February with 610,000, which is an 8% increase over last year. And we're currently at 252,000 over the same time last year. 7.3, quarter-cent jail tax is also up 8%, 830,000, and the total over last year is 345,000. 7.4, the road tax also had an increase, 5%, came in at 126,633. And finally, 7.5, that Nelson's insurance report began with 1.5, and after the infusion ended at 2.2 for the month of September. That's all I have. Open for any questions.
Any questions for Bobby? Thank you, Bobby.
You're welcome.
Next thing we have is the comptroller's report. I'm going to call on Jennifer Hinkle to handle this. Oh, no, actually showed up. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're okay.
You could have got out of it.
I know. I don't know what I was thinking. 8.1 is the unappropriated reserves report. It reflects that general's unappropriated reserves is $6,657,358. That's including the insurance transfer. 8.2 is the summary revenue and expenditures, which also lists unappropriated balances for each fund. And approximately each fund should be about 75% spent. There is a correction I need to bring to attention. Fund 3400 for FEMA, its unappropriated balance should be 0. There was an error in posting of an ordinance, so the budgeted expenditures are reduced as well. 8.3 is the summary statement of operations of everybody's department and fund. This should also as well be at 75%, and then the same FEMA would need to be updated with the expended expenditures. That is all I have.
Any questions for Ashley? J.P. Harbison. Turn your mic on, Ann, please.
The ambulance shows expenditures, what, at 100%?
For the ambulance, if you're looking at
Well, where is it?
It's a woman.
8.3.
Am I on the wrong page?
No, 301.
Oh, there I am, right there. 301, yeah. That's
Okay, on the summary.
Yes.
Okay, that is because of the encumbrance. Because the contract we pay, we encumber it. So
Okay.
you're reflecting that in the overall percentage expended.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, no. Any other questions for Ashley? Yes. Yes.
We're just looking at line 8888.
Uh-huh.
Can you just kind of walk us through a little bit of that? I'm sure there's
Yes.
some backstory there.
Okay, so department number 8888 is our transfers out. So you'll see that for Fund 3012 and 3028. So basically, we have some employees that are paid out of the general fund, and so we go ahead and budget in the transfer out of those two funds to reimburse the general fund for the revenue they receive. Those two funds don't receive enough revenue to cover the expenditures in the general fund. So we transfer them to the general fund at the end of the year for what they can cover.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next thing we have before us is the review of the legislative audit. The county legislative audit for the year of 2014 has been completed, and the quorum court is required to acknowledge receipt of this audit. All of you received this documentation a few months ago. Are there any questions about this audit? I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of approving the audit, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Madam Judge, I believe the motion was just that we acknowledged receipt. We didn't approve it.
I think it's just to acknowledge.
I just want to clarify that.
Steve?
That's right. JP Sue Madison's correct, and this body legally lacks the authority, so to speak, to approve the audit. That for a whole bunch of reasons, but they just have to essentially verbally have a green card in the mail that says they got it.
Okay, thank you.
May I still have the floor then? May I still have the floor?
Sure, go right ahead.
Okay, in anticipation of items 10 through 15, I would move that we suspend the rules and read all those ordinances by title only.
I have a motion to suspend the rules and read all these ordinances by title only. Second? Any discussion on that? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Okay, so now we're ready for number 10. J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Zaga, would you read 10.1 by title?
An ordinance recognizing and appropriating additional revenues of $6,295, reducing the drug court grant fund of $10,689, and appropriating $81,738 in various funds for 2016.
Okay, we have kind of a quarterly sweep of funds going on here. 81,000 sounds like, oh, it's going to take my breath away, but basically this is money that we've received from agencies like the university, where we, for the Sheriff's Department, for their services, repaying us in kind for our salaries benefits, the whole thing, so it is a wash. You just don't see that cash coming in on this ordinance. The money has come into the bank. So I move to pass 10.1.
Second.
Revised.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Carly, would you call the roll?
Tom Lundstrom,
Yes.
Eva Madison, Sue Madison, Joel Maxwell, Gary McHenry, Joe Patterson, Butch Pond, Bill Ussery, Daniel Balls, Harvey Bowman, Rick Cochran,
Yes.
Robert Dennis, Lisa Eki, Ann Harbison,
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd,
Number 11. J.P. Pond? Yes.
That's what I have in front of me, J.P. Pond. An ordinance deleting 2 personnel positions and creating the position of right-of-way coordinator supervisor in the road department budget and appropriating the amount of $13,153 from the road fund to the road department budget for 2016.
This, it's a situation where we had a supervisory position in times past and had traded that for a couple of workers, and then and now they've seen the need to have the supervisor position replaced, and have not been filling the billets on the workers. And myself, I personally see where we might be coming into more of a trend with technology, where we need this employee overseeing not only county workers, but situations where we're going to you're going to be bidding projects out, and they'll be overseeing some things the private contractors do. This individual does a lot of technical, has a lot of technical capability. He's working in conjunction with the individual that's in the planning office. The new position that we've approved for that office. I move we pass 11.1.
I have a motion and a second. Yes, J.P. Madison.
I'm a little confused how we're eliminating 2 positions to combine to 1, but it still costs us money.
Actually, what we'll do is we'll eliminate the 2 positions, and then we'll go ahead and appropriate the money for the new position, and we'll offset it with the money that's at the end of the year in housekeeping.
Do you know if it's a wash or
There's actually
a savings?
Yeah.
Okay, that helps. It's good to know that.
Thank
you, Judge.
That was what I wanted to point out, is that if you look at the 2 HEO operator salaries that we budgeted in 2017, they come in at $39,863 with all benefits. And this, at the top of your page, the right-of-way coordinator supervisor annual salary with all benefits is $63,789. So actually, it is a gain to the budget. Thank you, Judge.
Did you have your hand up, J.P. Madison? Okay, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'd like somebody from the road department to answer this question. The way J.P. Pond was talking about the heavy equipment operator, it raised some antennas here that it sounded like perhaps already someone has been hired into that position and is working in that position.
No,
Is
ma'am.
that
We have a person in that position doing right-of-ways right now, but the job has so many other responsibilities with it that it's becoming too much for one person. So we're going to separate it out and put this person, a new person, over into this new position that we're creating.
Okay, so you're going to advertise, and this will be a new person, and
Yes.
okay, good. I just didn't like the sound of it, that somebody had already been selected in a sense, but you've satisfied me. Thank you, Judge.
Any other questions, discussions? We have a motion and a second. Carly, would you call the roll?
Judge?
Yes.
Oh, comment, Judge, I'm sorry.
Citizens.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can speak out. You don't have to give me motions. Do I have citizens' comments on this? Okay, now you call the roll.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ake.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
There seems to be a question here. Are we okay? Okay, we'll go ahead then. Thank you. We're on number 12, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Zaga, would you please read by title, 12.1?
An ordinance anticipating revenues of $10,000 in the HIDA grant fund and appropriating $10,000 from the HIDA grant fund to the HIDA 2016 grant budget for 2016.
That pretty much says it all. Thank you, Renee. I move to pass 12.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Okay, a public comment. Do we have a public comment on this? Okay, we'll go ahead and do a roll call. Carly?
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson.
Yes.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ake.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Thank you. Number 13, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. Attorney Zaga, by title only, please.
An ordinance anticipating revenue of $417,517 in the DEM grant fund and appropriating $417,517 from the DEM grant fund to various Homeland Security budgets for 2016.
Thank you. That pretty well explains it, too. Thank you, Renee. I move to pass 13.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Carly, would you call the roll?
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison. Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Eke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Thank you. Number 14, J.P. Cochran.
Attorney Zaga, would you read 14.1 by title only, please?
An ordinance recognizing revenue in the amount of $7,500 in the Animal Shelter Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $7,500 from the Animal Shelter Grant Fund to the Animal Shelter gift budget for 2016.
Our citizens are very generous. I move to pass 14.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Carly, call the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Start over.
Number 15.
Thank you,
Cochran.
Judge. Attorney Zaga, please, 15.1 by title.
An ordinance recognizing additional revenues of $57,488 in the Law Enforcement Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $57,488 from the Law Enforcement Grant Fund to the SCAP 2016 budget for 2016.
Thank you, Attorney Zaga. I would like to move to pass 15.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any
Yes. Yes, I do have a
Go
discussion.
right ahead. You're recognized.
When we add these numbers up, there's over $500,000 that our grants department has brought to the citizens of Washington County. I just want to point that out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Any public comment? Carly, call the roll, please.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond. Bill Ussery. Daniel Balls. Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran. Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Eke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
Yes.
Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Thank you. My report is now due. I have got one thing for this, and I need to call Jeff Hatley to the well to speak to us. He is with Ozark Regional Transit, and this is kind of his quarterly annual report. So tell us who you are. You're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Judge. My name is Jeff Hatley.
ladies and gentlemen of the court. I'm the Public Information Officer with Ozark Regional Transit, your public transportation system for the region. And I appreciate you letting me speak tonight. We continue to grow at a steady pace. The overall system, the fixed route system, year to date has grown 4% over year to date last year. And let me ask you too, is everybody getting these reports that want to get them? Okay. So the fixed route system is continually growing at a nice 4% rate. The paratransit column or line item on this is kind of clumped in with demand response. They're a little bit different. I'm happy to explain that if you'd like. But it's grown 5% year to date over last year. And this is important to understand that we've not added any new routes since last year. So this is all just more people riding the system that's been in place. We did celebrate our 2-year milestone for the Route 620, which connects Lincoln through Prairie Grove, Farmington, Fayetteville, Greenland, and West Fork. That has now been in service for 2 years and has also steadily grown. And that's the one that this court approved back in 2014, possibly 2013. We started in 2014. That particular route has grown. We had 2,317 pickups in 2015, and that's grown to 2,665 year to date this year. That's a 15% increase in that. I can give some numbers just on specific cities along that route if anybody's interested in that, but like I say, you've got the report, and I'm happy to answer any questions or comments or concerns.
Yes, J.P. Harbison.
Can you tell me the turnaround time? Let's just say there's a point, let's just say Greenland. What's the length of time that it comes back, and comes, again? What is the turnaround time on that route?
The full circuit for that route is 3 hours.
It's 3 hours.
And that's sad. But we are connecting 5 new communities out there that had no public transportation system. And that connects in with, I believe, 2 other routes of ours, and also a lot of Razorback Transit's routes at the Lot 56 transfer point. So, yes, it is 3 hours if you rode all the way around. I don't think very many people do ride it all the way around.
So if I get on at my driveway between West Fork and Greenland, and I come into Fayetteville, then it'll be 3 hours before that bus comes back and starts back to West Fork.
About, yes. It'll be 3 hours back to your original location.
Thank you.
Yes, that's one place we're hoping to grow is more frequency on some of those longer routes, especially the express routes.
What size bus are you running that particular route?
I believe that route is still one of our smaller buses. I think it carries 18 people.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
Thank you,
Chief
Madam
Dennis,
Judge.
I'm sorry, I didn't see.
Jeff, thank you for all you do. A lot of my constituents push back a little bit on the bus, and they feel like it's not used enough to justify it. How would you sum that up? Sum that up for me so I can sum it up for them.
Okay. I get that a lot. When I do trade shows and things, people say, oh, great, public transportation system. Do y'all go to the airport? Well, no, not yet. Do y'all go to Crystal Bridges? No, not yet. We're working on it. And a lot of places, I just have to tell people that, we've got a presence there. It's kind of a toehold until we can get more services there, more frequency, more buses, more bus routes. And I use the metaphor of a tree, and there's low-hanging fruit, and there's obviously the higher-hanging fruit. The higher-hanging fruit in this area, we are so blessed to have a thriving economy and a growing area that everybody wants to move to. So the high-hanging fruit is 20 years from now. Do you want to have a lot of $60 million parking decks all around Bentonville Square, all around Fayetteville Square, so that people can park and come to the amenities in Dixon Street and the square? Or would a better vision 20 years from now be a trolley system that allows people to park at the mall or park at Arvis Ballpark or park at different places and ride the trolley into some of those locations that are obviously places people want to go, but there's just no parking available, especially not 20 years from now. I myself have had my car towed off of Dixon Street.
So that's kind of the higher hanging fruit. What do you want Northwest Arkansas to look like in 20 years? The lower hanging fruit is the obvious. People who, for whatever reason, don't have the same things in life that we take for granted. They don't have the 2 cars in every garage and chicken in every pot. They have maybe 1 car, and mom or dad takes that to work, and the mom and kids or dad and kids are left behind, and the Amazium up in Bentonville or something just right around the corner, Wilson Park, may be, 5 miles away. When you've got a little one in tow, it might as well be, across the state. So there's that sort of thing. We do a lot of other things as far as we're part of the emergency management system. When there's a major flood, they call us in to evacuate people. I believe it was 3 years ago, we had a major flood in Johnson, in a senior citizen's home or acute care or whatever. I'm not sure exactly what it was. But anyway, it flooded out, and they needed to move a lot of people in a real short amount of time. At 2 o'clock in the morning, we arrived and we evacuated those folks and got them out of harm's way. There's a lot of things like that. We're one of, I don't know if you're familiar with Safe Place. It's a organization run by Youth Bridge that for runaway teenagers, abused, domestic violence victims, things like that. You see them on fire stations a lot. It's a little Safe Place, yellow warning sign looking thing, and it's got a home on it. Well, we're kind of a traveling safe place. So if a runaway or whatever needs some help, and they know, they don't know who to ask to find a safe place to get the real help and people that's not going to take further advantage of them, they can get on our bus, say, hey, I'm here, I'm this, and we have a protocol set in place to get them to the proper people. There's a lot of things like that. I actually gave this speech to the Fayetteville leadership group the other day. So I would encourage ride the bus one time down I-49 and look over to the side and see how many people are driving and texting. Yeah. You'll be a believer in public transit real quick. So there's a lot of different things. I'm happy to talk to you one-on-one. I'm happy to.
Well, I appreciate these comments.
Mm-hmm.
About the other one that I'd like to ask.
Mike is not on.
The other one that I would like to ask is, they'll say, well, I always see the bus and I always see it empty. And, of course, now I work out at Walmart Supercenter, and so I see it with quite a few people because they ride there and get off and shop. Then they all get back on as well. So help me on that one.
Okay. We get that question a lot, too. And the response that our director always gives is, let me know what bus you saw, when, what date, all that, because a lot of people confuse us with church buses. Ours are typically royal blue, but we've actually leased some white buses. They do have the ORT in there, but some people assume that that's us, and it's not. Open Avenues has similar buses, and they don't have their logo on them. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Open Avenues, but they're kind of like Elizabeth Richardson Center. They employ mentally disabled and physically disabled people, and they work for different companies around the area doing tedious things that it would just be an engineering nightmare to engineer a machine to do that. And but because of the stigma associated with some of those people, Open Avenues in particular has decided not to put their logo on there to kind of advertise, who they're. So that may be something they may be assuming that we're somebody that we're not. It could be a bus that is doing time trials. They're trying to explore a new route that we've been requested to explore and see if it would work, how that would fit in with our rest of our network. It could be that it's a bus that's maybe just at a shift change. We brought a driver up, and we're bringing that one back because of fuel reasons. That's especially true in Benton County, and that's especially true with some of our CNG buses, which is compressed natural gas, because those things run on pressure, and if you get too low, you may have some natural gas in there, but if it's not enough to keep that pressure up, they'll stop. And we've been told they'll go 250 miles, but we don't want to push that, especially not when it's up in Bentonville, and you'd have to send a tow truck to go get it. That is not cost efficient to do that. So that's what we typically tell people. Give us some times when you've seen the bus and you've seen it empty, and let's see if that's actually one of our buses. I'm sure Route 620 sometimes is empty, but there is quite a bit of ridership as compared when it first started. I think we had like 12 riders the first 2 weeks, something like that. It was very, very minimal. And that's slowly grown, and people do use that, especially NWAC students.
Very well explained. Thank you.
Okay.
J.P. Sue Madison.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I'd just like to comment that I do notice going around town certain of your bus stops. Mountain Man down on South School, there's one near there. The Health Department near Goodwill, and Washington Plaza Apartments, that's a low-income apartment complex. And what that tells me is these are people, and there'll be people waiting at these bus stops as well as unloading at these bus stops. These are people that are being served with the only choice for transportation that they really have. This is parents getting young children to the health department. It's paying an electric bill that's been cut off perhaps down at Mountain Man. Washington Plaza, there's 150 apartments there. Maybe not quite that many. But many of those people don't have a car. And that is a selling point for that apartment complex. And it is a nonprofit. I'm on the board there. So bear in mind that these people that ride the bus really need it, and they appreciate it. And it's better for all of us if these kids are getting taken care of, if the electric bills are being paid, and getting to work as well. Just like to ask you to study a route that would serve Willow Heights, perhaps. Willow Heights.
Willow Heights? Where's that?
Down behind the old courthouse, up the hill off Center Street, Center and
Okay.
Rock.
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Looking at that, certainly. And I would add one thing to that. We actually did a booth fair down here at Seven Hills Day Center, and that's the second one we've done. It was organized by the University of Arkansas nursing students. And some of the folks there, honestly, in my personal opinion, you're not going to help. They're going to be homeless no matter what, unfortunately. But there's several there that we were able to reach, and actually they were looking for a job, and maybe they were in transition, a lot of bad things happened to them. And we actually we did a lot of workforce routes last year in Springdale with a lot of the chicken plants up there to help get people back and forth, because transportation was one of their biggest concerns and reasons for not showing up to work was transportation issue. There's a lot of other things going into that. But George's bought into the idea, and they were adding a second shift anyway, and so we created a route. It's still public transportation. It's for anybody, but George's employees can ride that route and all of our routes for free. It's one of the benefits. It's a recruiting tool for them. Other chicken plants have taken notice this year, and they're approaching us to do the same thing for them, and so we're starting to look at that. And the benefit to the Seven Hills people, that booth fair was, you don't have a car, you don't have a job, have I got a solution for you? You want to go work for George's Chicken? They will get you to work and back for free until you can get on your feet a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
J.P. Harbison.
You had, or someone had said at one point you were going to try to do a route for Superior. Did that work out?
We talked with them at something was put on by the Chamber of Commerce, and we've got a route that goes out to the industrial park, but it's not specifically for Superior. Is Superior out there by the industrial park, or is it? Is it? Okay. So we do have a route that goes out there. It's not specifically for Superior. I don't know how many people actually use that one. That's, I want to say Route 2. And unfortunately, right after we talked with them, they closed down the plant up in Rogers before we could get Route 52 going up there.
Any other questions or comments for Jeff? Thank you very much, Jeff.
Judge.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, Jeff Cochran.
You made the mention that you have some CNG units, and previously we've been told that they didn't want to go that way because of various reasons. Is that the direction that you're headed as you replace equipment to go to CNG?
I believe that's probably the direction we're going to go. We had to wait for a CNG pump station to come into Northwest Arkansas, which we had done whenever that was first mentioned to us, and then they put in one at the Come and Go station about a mile from our offices and our yard. I understand that Fayetteville is wanting to go, I believe, butane, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that, but CNG is also one of those alternates, and there was an opportunity there. I think we got some grant money to buy the things. They burn extremely efficiently.
They're so clean. I was out in the West Coast, and I'm using public transportation out there, and if you've ever been around a diesel-based bus as it takes off, it's like, whoa. But behind this CNG bus, it's like, oh, we need to go this way, and I'm glad to hear that you have some.
Well, as a public relations person, I love them because I've been able to drive them into the Springdale Convention Center and have them as a static display along with the booth. Talk about an attention getter. I'm able to run the engine itself at Touch a Truck so that we can give kids a wheelchair lift ride, which we had a kid said he didn't want to get off the bus and go see the fire trucks. He wants to stay on the bus. You talk about that's a public relations win right there. But also at Touch a Truck, that just so happened they parked us right beside a massage booth. And now the way they parked us, our exhaust was right there towards the thing, and I had them turn the bus around. But we were right next to a massage booth, and they did not have not one single complaint. And we ran that bus the entire time in order to keep the battery charged. So, yeah, it's especially for a public relations guy, it's perfect. And also in the Christmas parades, there's been times we were smoking out the float behind us because we were trying to stay warm. Now we can run it and no complaints.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Judge.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Jeff.
Right here,
Oh,
More, right? Thank you, Madam Judge.
Thank you.
I know when Judge Zimmerman was here in front of us a couple of weeks ago, working on the new development in Springdale with the Jones Center. One of the concerns they have is being able to get kids to show up to her court and some of their treatment, their therapies, and the things they're trying to put together there that we approved. I was wondering if you might be able to get with her on some of her transportation needs that would really be a good use of county dollars and really help these kids that are struggling to make their appointments and to actually go through their therapy.
And that was Judge Zimmerman?
Yes, sir.
And who's she with, he with?
Juvenile
Yeah.
judge.
Juvenile.
We can get her contact information, I'm sure, quite easily for you.
Okay. I know we're doing something similar with Benton County with the JDAI because there's no testing centers over in western Benton County. The only one is in NWAC, and so we're working with them to start getting some of those juveniles over there to NWAC to get their GED. So there's several things like that.
Jeff, if you'll call Karen, she'll
Okay.
get you Judge Zimmerman's information, and
Okay.
you can call on her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm not missing anyone now. Okay. Thank you, Jeff.
All right. Thank you.
The next thing we have is committee reports, and it looks like the only one that had committee meetings was J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. The County Services Committee met on October 3rd. We had a report from the planning office that did report an uptick in activity and development. Otherwise, everything was fairly normal from the planning office. We spent the majority of our time talking about the IT policy that needs to be updated because of concerns from legislative audit. And I think I sufficiently overwhelmed everyone, and so the job has fallen back to me and Mr. Zaga to get that ready by the November meeting. We did go ahead and cancel the meeting for October 31st because I have a stormtrooper that needs to go trick-or-treating. So that concludes my report, Judge.
Thank you. Next thing we have is number 18, J.P. Balls.
Steve, would you read 18.1, please?
I'm sorry.
Are you?
I have a request before 18.1.
Oh, okay.
If I may, I'd like to ask the sponsor, J.P. Balls, if he would consider me as a co-sponsor to this ordinance.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll add that on for you.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Judge.
An ordinance amending Washington County Code Section 2-47 to include a parental leave policy in the employee's handbook. Whereas Washington County recognizes the importance of family relationships to its employees, and whereas Washington County further recognizes the need for a primary caregiver to bond with the child immediately after the child's birth or placement for adoption, and whereas it is the desire of the Quorum Court to amend the personnel policy to reflect this recognition, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of the County of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1. Washington County Code Section 2-47 is hereby amended to include the following parental leave policy in the Washington County Employee Handbook. Parental leave policy. Washington County is firmly committed to protecting the rights of expectant parents and complying with Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act as amended by the Pregnancy Discrimination Act of 1978 and the Americans with Disabilities Act. Washington County's policy provides eligible employees with a period of paid time off for activities related to the care and well-being of their newborn or adopted child. Parental leave may be utilized in conjunction with other paid and unpaid leave entitlements. Washington County will provide up to 8 weeks paid parental leave to an eligible employee serving as a primary caregiver following the birth or adoption of a child. The benefit amount will be the base salary determined by the regularly scheduled hours of work. Eligible employees must have been employed at least 1 year and for at least 1,250 hours during the preceding 12-month period. This policy does not provide a benefit for guardianships, conservatorships, or foster children. Eligible employees who meet the service requirements must have the parental leave must use the parental leave in the first 12 weeks following the birth or adoption of a child. If both parents work for Washington County, then only one parent can be designated as a primary caregiver. Parental leave will be considered if it is applicable for the following reasons: the birth of the employee's child in order to care for the child, the placement of a child with the employee for adoption. An eligible employee is defined as a natural parent or new adoptive parent who is the primary caregiver. Parents shall be defined by state law. An individual who adopts a spouse's or partner's children is not eligible for this benefit. A primary caregiver is defined as someone who has primary responsibility following the birth or taking of the child into the custody, care, or control of the parents for the first time. In all cases, the employee requesting leave must notify the supervisor of a need for leave. In addition, the employee intending to take parental leave because of an expected birth or adoption placement must submit the appropriate documentation, for example, medical certificate, adoption decree, etc., at least 30 days before the leave is to begin, except in instances where such information is not reasonably available to the employee. To ensure accurate and timely payment, the employee is responsible for submitting all of these forms to the HR office at least 30 days in advance of the first day of leave. Parental leave will run concurrently with associated family and medical leave. The employee must use his or her accrued vacation and sick following the paid parental leave before going on a leave without pay status. During a period of parental leave, an employee will be retained on the Washington County Health Plan under the same conditions that applied before leave commenced. To continue health coverage, the employee must continue to make contributions that he or she made during the plan before leaving. Once on an employee's return to work, premiums that are in arrears and due to Washington County will be held at twice the normal premium rate until the amount owed has been fully reimbursed. When the employee returns to work, he or she is entitled to return to the same or equivalent job with no loss of service or other rights or privileges, provided, however, that in the extent of a layoff, reorganization, downsizing, or other cases where the employee's position has been permanently eliminated for reasons not connected to his or her leave, the county has no obligation to reinstate the employee. Please note that Washington County cannot guarantee that an employee will be returned to his or her original job. A determination of whether a position is an equivalent position will be made by Washington County. If the employee fails to return to work for 30 days after the expiration of leave, the employee will be required to reimburse Washington County for the payment of health care premiums during the leave unless the reason that the employee fails to return is the presence of a serious health condition which prevents the employee from performing the job or to circumstances beyond the employee's control. Standard Family and Medical Leave Act certification rules will apply. Should the employee not return to work when released by a physician, they will be considered to have voluntarily terminated their employment with Washington County.
Thanks, Steve. This is the second reading of this ordinance tonight. We've voted on it at our last meeting, and I just want to reiterate why I brought this up. I think it's a great recruiting tool for our elected officials, our department heads. This is where the world is going. We're seeing more and more companies move to this. We're competing with Walmarts, the Tysons, the J.B. Hunts. We have about a 3.5% unemployment in our area, so there's definitely a need to be able to recruit good employees, and I think it's important to bring good people to work for county government. I think this is a great tool for us. We've always been, as a county, a leader in our state, and this is going to be another great example for us. I know that some people may have some hesitations, but this is a big deal, and we're going to be the first ones in the state to do this. And I'm proud to stand in front of you guys and say, I support this. So I do ask for your support if you would reconsider this time. And I'm going to make a motion that we pass 18.1.
Now, that was the second reading, wasn't it? We have to suspend the rules and place it on the third and final reading, I believe. Is that
Okay.
correct?
I'm going to make a motion that we suspend the rules and place it on the third and final reading. By title only.
Okay. Okay, now let's go ahead. You're
Is there a second?
Yes, there was a second.
Sweet.
Thank you, Judge. I'd like to speak out against this. I believe it is an entitlement. I have checked with numerous employees in the area, and I'd like to know which ones J.P. Balls is speaking about that's doing this, because no one in our area is doing it that I found. Our own a sweet little Dallas that sits on the first row there has called me several times about it. He is just extremely against it. He's written me 2 letters, and he wanted to be here tonight to speak out about it, and I'm not sure where he is. But my main opposition to it is that we have 507 employees in this organization in our Washington County. This is going to represent yearly about 3% of the employees, and I don't feel like that the cost to the county, that we as the county should take this cost for 3% of the employees there. And once again, I'd like to reiterate that no businesses that I spoke to, and I spoke to small businesses and several school districts, Springdale Schools, which employs over 20,000 people. Nobody's doing this, and I believe this is a cost to the county that we cannot afford. Thank you.
Okay, now I think J.P. Lundstrom, and then you had, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to speak in opposition to it as well. I just had a left knee replaced at Washington Regional Medical Center, and I had my therapy done at Washington Regional Therapy Center. And the young lady that did my therapy had to leave on a Wednesday to go have her child. And I said, well, I guess you're going to get your 6 or 8 weeks paid parental leave while you do this, won't you? She said, well, I get 6 weeks off, but I have to take it with my vacation and my sick leave. And that's what I suggested here the other night. We already have a very good plan for our employees. They get sick leave, they get paid vacation, they get APRS retirement, they get a very good health care program. And I'm afraid if we expand these benefits too far, we'll get down to zero exchange every year. And I don't think it would make any difference how many more benefits you give them. We're still going to have 5% turnover every year. Everybody that leaves does not leave because somebody else is paying better or has more benefits. There are other reasons why people leave offices. But that was, I did like Justice Lloyd did. Then I went and checked with other business people, and I couldn't find any that were doing it in our local area. We've got an awful lot of people out there. Almost all of HARP's employees, for example, are part-time employees. A lot of Walmart employees are part-time employees. These are big employers, and they're paying $8.50 to $10, $11, $12 an hour. And with the dollar bill being worth 17, 18 cents on the dollar, purchasing power, you can't do much with that kind of a paycheck. And they're not getting all these benefits, but they're paying the taxes to pay for these. And that always bothers me a little bit. So anyway, as I stand right now, I will be in opposition to this. Thank you, Madam Judge.
Ma'am, just briefly.
Yes, go ahead.
But there hadn't been a vote yet on the motion to suspend the rules, as far as I know, which I think is what's on the floor, with due respect to everybody having debate on what is essentially the main motion. I just thought I'd bring that up.
That's true.
Okay, then we need to go ahead and vote on that.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, let's go ahead and vote on suspend the rules and place it on the third and final reading. Any more discussion on that?
It's 2/3 to suspend it and place it on final reading. And that is subject to discussion.
So a yes vote is to...
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'd like to speak later on the main motion if we get to it. But as my recollection was that this had 8 votes last time. And so unless everybody's dramatically changing their minds, this is going to pass. And we just need to get it passed. I mean, because there are people in the county who are expecting now And to just sort of dangle this out in front of them like, well, we hope we'll get to this in the next few months is not really fair. So those of you who may be considering voting against it, I hope you'll at least let us get it passed tonight so that we can provide this benefit to our employees without delay. Thank you, Judge.
Okay, now we're going to vote on the third, suspend the rules and place it on the third. Carly, would you call the roll, please?
Tom Lindstrom.
No.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell. Gary McHenry.
No.
Joe Patterson.
No.
Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
No.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
No.
Robert Dennis. Lisa Eki.
Yes.
Ann Harbison.
That failed, didn't it?
The motion failed, Judge, yes.
Oh, wait, we're not
I'm
done.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Wait, she didn't.
I didn't call the roll.
I didn't get a vote for Ann.
She said no.
Oh.
I
So,
had six ayes, 7 nays, and 1 abstain.
I've got other people registered. So are we back open for discussion? Okay, the next one I have is J.P. Madison. Is that it? Nothing else?
Judge, that's correct.
Hang on just a minute, Ann.
This item, you're done with this on the agenda. You can extend as the chair of a courtesy to talk about it if you want to, but it's off the agenda now because it's finished.
You have a question?
Yes, I have a question. I would like to ask Ashley a question. Is she left? Okay.
Karen can answer it.
For next month.
Okay. The reason I voted no, that doesn't mean that I'm going to vote no on this, but I want to know if it's in the current budget. If it's in the current budget, okay. That was my question before. Okay, thank you.
Now, do we have any? I'm going to allow some questions, but no comments. Butch, what's your question?
Okay, I just wanted to make you're not going to have any comments?
No, that's over. We'll have to wait till it comes back next meeting and have placed it on the third and final reading.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd like to ask a question. What do people have against babies that need their mom for 8 weeks? The second question is, what is the objection? The 8 weeks, or do you want just 6 weeks? So I think that is something that I would like defined by those who voted against this ordinance and against the families of Washington County employees. I mean, if you've ever been pregnant, and being pregnant is a lot different than a knee surgery. But
I'm going to.
Those are the 2 questions I'd like to have answered. Thank you.
Okay, we had a little comment in there. Butch, I'm going to recognize you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to recognize that as a question, and I might have asked the same question had I thought of asking it that way. But the question I would like to ask is, because there is adequate opposition, this is running pretty close, I would be asking the sponsor if he might consider tabling this and regrouping, changing some of it to be closer to what some of the other people on the court might approve of. Thank you.
J.B. Madison, you have a question?
No, I have a comment since we're apparently making them. So let me say that there's been a lot of debate in this election cycle about women's rights and women and where women stand. This is primarily an issue about women. It's certainly going to benefit some dads, but this is an issue about whether we're willing to help working women or not. And one of the things that I have picked up on from the presidential campaign is, are men willing to stand up for women when women need them to stand up? We can stand up on our own, but a lot of times it's when men stand up alongside the women and agree with us. And there are only 5 women on this court. There are 10 men. It's easy for the men to dismiss the need for parental leave because they're not usually the ones, typically, that have to deal with this issue. J.P. Ecke's dealt with it. I'm sure J.P. Harbison has. I have recently because my son is only 6 years old. Trying to deal with what you do with a child when they're a brand new baby and they cannot be put in daycare is a big deal. I talked to county employees who said, yeah, we can scrap together some vacation and some sick leave and maybe cover part of the time, but then we have no leave left. So what happens when you have to go back to work and then have to take that baby to the doctor? You don't have any leave left. So I am challenging the men on this court for the next time this comes up to stand up for the mothers and the families of this county, because that's what Washington County needs to do. Stand up for us. Thank you.
I'm going to recognize one more, J.P. Lloyd, and then we're going to close this discussion.
Thank you, Judge. Since we're not doing questions but making comments, I'd like to make a comment that the last time I checked, I was a woman, and I'm standing up against this, and I'm telling you that it's an entitlement that this county does not need, that once again, it only provides services for about 3% of the 570 employees of this county. No other business that I could find, and I'd love to know of other businesses in our area that do this. They don't do this. There's some people on this court that have a business, and they don't do it for their employees, yet they are high behind this, but they don't do it for their employees. But they're going to do it for the county. It is not every person, every citizen in this county, it is not their responsibility to pay for an entitlement that they are not being benefited for. I have 2 children. I saved my vacation days. I saved all my time that I needed and had my 2 children and then went back to work. Others can do it because it's not my responsibility to pay for everybody else's maternity leave. It's your responsibility to do it. And I had times when my husband had to take the children to the doctors because I had used my time. But you know what? That's what you do in America. And I hope that our sweet little Dallas is going to be here next time because he's got a great story that he wants to share with everyone about Americans. Be responsible for your own stuff and don't ask everybody else to pay for it for you. This is an entitlement. Thank you.
Yes, Steve, you're recognized.
Thank you, Judge. Very briefly, based on some of the comments and questions I heard after the motion to suspend the rules failed, I just wanted to point out a couple things to the members. If there's to be substantive work done on this ordinance, and what I mean by that is if it's the court's will to tinker with, and I understand, I heard some comments that might, I think you might consider bringing it back up in committee. I do know that county services is not on for October, but if you're going to essentially change the way this reads, if you're not opposed to it as a principle, but you want to talk about how much time or some other condition, probably the place to do that is in committee as opposed to simply because it'll be on third and final reading next time. So I just would like you to consider that if, in fact, that's the sense of some of the members of the court.
Okay, the next thing we have is number 19, J.P. Ussery. Yes, Butch, I'm sorry.
It's all right. I've got a question for the attorney. Would it be possible to, for the sponsor, even if we don't do anything, if he doesn't do anything tonight, for the sponsor to pull this for more work later on?
That's not covered, J.P. Pond, that's not covered in the rules, but that's been a tradition on this court. Here's the short answer, though, to that is that there are now 3 co-sponsors who I suspect he'd need the assent of to do that, and he'd have to hash that out now because they can't do it. So my guess is probably not.
Yes.
Would you indulge me to make a comment on this? I know you stopped comments, but could I say
sure,
please?
Go ahead. I don't care.
Thank you. To me, this is about ensuring that families and children have a good start in life. Babies are very vulnerable. They are helpless. For a new mother, it can be terrifying just to give one a bath. They're slippery, and it's scary to bathe one. They need a good start. Nobody is going to start having lots of babies to take care of this sick leave. Nobody I know has ever come out financially ahead by having children. They are a money pit, let me tell you. But we need a new generation coming up. We need a new generation that's had a good start in life, that's had a parent there taking care of them, making sure they don't slip and slide and fall out of the bathtub, making sure if they've got an early illness that there's a pediatrician they can go to and make sure they get good care. And when you first have a baby and you have to go back to work, then you've got a neighbor coming over, a teenager coming over, anybody you can find to come over and babysit while you go to work. This is the right thing to do for our employees. It's the right thing to do for our babies. Our children deserve this. We can be a leader on this issue. Many of us are strong believers in family values. This is the time to show that we believe in our families in America. And not all families have two parents. Thank you.
I'm going to stop debate. I really am. Okay, we're going to move on. J.P. Usry, number 19.
Thank you very much. Steve, if you'd read this for us, please.
An ordinance amending Washington County Code Section 2.7-23B, whereas the Washington County Quorum Court passed ordinances number 2016-22 and 2016-32 dealing with dangerous, potentially dangerous, and hazardous animals, and whereas the Washington County Animal Concerns Advisory Board has recommended that one of the subsections dealing with the confinement of potentially dangerous animals be edited and clarified, and whereas the Quorum Court agrees with this need for this clarification. With the need for this clarification. I'm sorry, the comma threw me off, and I don't think it needs to be in there, does it?
No.
I'll let the final version of that. Anyway, now therefore be it ordained by the Quorum Court of Washington County, Arkansas, Article 1. Washington County Code Section 2.7-23B is hereby amended to read as follows. B, potentially dangerous animals, while on the animal owner's property, shall be securely confined indoors or in a securely enclosed and lock pen or structure suitable to prevent the entry of young children and designed to prevent the animal from escaping. Such pen or structure shall be constructed in accordance with the U.S. Department of Agriculture standards and must be a cage, fence, walled enclosure, building, or any other structure that is of sound construction, and shall also provide room for adequate exercise and protection from the elements for the animal. The animal owner shall display signs warning of the dangerous animal along with a symbol for the same easily seen by children. The signs displayed shall be easily seen from the public roadway.
Okay, thank you very much, Stephen. And I would like to point out that this is this is just cleaning up what we already have. And I'd also like to just go on record as saying that we just need to get this passed. And I'll just leave it at that. I have some other comments. I will not say them. Thank you.
J.P. Pond?
Is this on first reading?
Well, this only has to have one reading.
No, okay. No, it's not an emergency, Judge. It's got to be read 3 times.
It's on the third and final reading?
Oh, it is. That's what I was. Okay.
Okay. I thought it was.
So I move to pass as read.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any comment from the public? Carly, call the roll. Oh, Mike, come on. That's okay. I missed you. I knew you was here for a reason.
I'll just be brief. My name's Mike Emery. I'm current chair of the Animal Concerns Advisory Board. And I just wanted to say this, like J.P. Usry was saying, this is just to clarify and make it a little easier for the residents and our animal control officers on what is expected when the vicious animals have to be held at home or in a containment. So it was just a clarification, make it a little easier for everybody.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Carly, call the roll.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry.
Yes.
Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis.
Yes.
Lisa Ecke. Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Yes.
Pass. Now, number 20 has been taken off of the agenda by motion. The next thing we have is 21, J.P. Cochran.
Thank you, Judge. I believe Justice Madison would have included reading by title only, 21, when she opted for 10 through 15. Would that be correct? Okay. Attorney, that was your intention? Okay. Attorney Zeger, would you read by title only? Or am I taking your breath away?
No, but you probably need, I would love it.
Make a motion.
I move to read 21.1 by title only.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, title only.
An ordinance anticipating revenues of $4,390 in the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund and appropriating $4,390 from the Environmental Affairs Grant Fund to the ADEQ BMT WC 16-07 budget for 2016.
Thank you, Attorney Zeger. I move to pass 21.1.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any public comment? Call the roll, Carly.
Tom Lundstrom.
Yes.
Eva Madison.
Yes.
Sue Madison.
Yes.
Joe Maxwell.
Yes.
Gary McHenry. Joe Patterson. Butch Pond.
Yes.
Bill Ussery.
Yes.
Daniel Balls.
Yes.
Harvey Bowman. Rick Cochran.
Yes.
Robert Dennis. Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Ann Harbison. Sharon Lloyd.
Okay, now we are at the end of this. Is there other business? Okay, Lisa.
One comment I just received from a constituent that Arvest Bank provides 12-week paid leave. So I just got that, and I want to say thank you very much for watching, to our public that's out there and showing their support and concern for mothers and their babies. Thank you.
J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I received, I think all of us may have received the email that Ms. Beek sent about a new video that's been posted on the Washington County website, and I just wanted to share a concern that I received from a constituent in Fayetteville. A woman showed up at their place of business driving a car with Illinois license plates, walked into the business past the no soliciting sign, presented a letter dated in November of 2015 that said it was from the judge. It was a little hard to tell if it was. And then was aggressively pushing this business owner to provide financial support in the form of a corporate sponsorship for a video on our website. She had a business card from some entity, like some, I don't know, and it was she was from New York. And I thought, this just doesn't seem right at all. And she was very aggressive, and she very much irritated the business owner because she'd walked past the no soliciting sign, for one. And then she said, this is very important. Judge Edwards and George Butler want to get this issue taken care of immediately. And then started asking about the Quorum Court. And I thought, the Quorum Court doesn't know anything about this. I found the whole thing very unusual. The business owner did not like it. I wasn't sure why somebody from New York, who apparently works in New York but lives in Chicago, was doing this. I don't know why we have corporate sponsors for anything in the county, because if they want to sponsor something, they should sponsor the budget. So I just wanted to pass along this issue because I found that the person who brought it to me was concerned, and I shared those concerns. And I felt I started to send an email to the court in response to Ms. Speaks' email, but then I worried about it violating FOIA. So I'm raising it here. I encourage you all to look back. I'm not sure many of us noted that email, but I encourage you to look back at that email. And I don't know what kind of contract we've entered into with these people. Apparently it was entered into last year, but I was uncomfortable with it. I wouldn't want someone coming to my business and asking me for money to support something that I'm not sure where it's going. So I just shared those concerns with the court. Thank you.
Any other business? Yeah. I'm sorry, Joel.
Thank you, Madam Judge. I really thought carefully before I decided to make this comment, but I say this, that it has nothing to do with the actual issue that we just discussed a moment ago. It has a lot to do with our policy and procedure. But it troubles me a lot. We're a formal body. We formally accepted Robert's Rules of Order, and we try to do things orderly. But it bothers me as a quorum court member and as a member of the public when we adopt things, we pass things, we vote on things, and then we set the rules aside and have comment section and discussion and debate when we've already closed debate. Wouldn't matter what the issue was, whatever. So I just put a comment out. I think we're only as good as how well we adhere to our rules and policy. And I think for the sake of our constituents and just professionalism, I think it would do us well to abide by procedure. Thank you.
Yes, go ahead.
The other night, too, I was a little surprised that we let someone add on to their time by letting someone else give them their time, because I'm worried that that could mean one person ends up speaking for 15 minutes. Of course, I wasn't going to raise the issue in front of her. I thought that was very unusual. I mean, if we're going to let... I'm not sure that the second person was even going to speak. She just gave her 3 minutes, and so we ended up... But, you know, we don't want to be put in a position where we're having to say to a person that wants to speak, stop talking, we're not going to listen to you. But I think we need to be a little bit more mindful of the rules that we've set out, too. And I echo J.P. Maxwell's concerns, because I had that comment the other night. So, thank you.
J.P. Patterson?
I wondered about that. Like tonight, we just had one come up, but I thought on what we did the other night, he could took all 5 of those 3-minute segments if he wanted to. I mean, I'm not saying I'm for or against it. I'm just saying we need to decide. Thank you.
J.P. Pond?
Brings up a question to the county attorney. Is, in fact, the public speakers, are they able to yield their time to the speaker that's on the floor?
My opinion is no, unless you suspend the rules, and you have that power. And you kind of put me on the spot with that question, J.P. Pond, but you put me on the spot, I've got to answer it, okay? And here's the reason for that. The comment time is put in an ordinance. And I even have doubts about whether, because it's ordained rather than in Robert's rules, you could suspend it by, you could suspend the rules and expand it or give up time. Let me say this about that. This court has frequently, not all the time, but frequently allowed, with your fellow members' consent, to relax those rules, to expand those rules. But the ordinance is the ordinance. There's a 15-minute limit on public comment with a 3-minute limit for each speaker. If you choose to do something else with your rules, either temporarily or permanently, it's up to you to do that. I didn't want to. I was in the same position that the rest of you were in. I didn't want to stop somebody in the middle of speaking, but be that as it may, the general rule is no, unless this body takes some affirmative action towards it. And again, maybe you can't even do that because it's ordained. It's law, right? So thank you for the sort of putting on the spot question.
Well, I don't have any problem stopping discussion. But when I do that, it goes for one and for all. And I have people around this horseshoe occasionally that gets offended because they don't get recognized. And I certainly don't have any problem. And I totally agree with you. Your rules are your rules, and we'll abide by those. I got 2 more meetings, 2 more months, and you've just decided what you want to do, and it will be done. Thank you very much. Any other business?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed, same sign.